Anthony Edwards is a damn good basketball player. Yes, he has his weaknesses, but to act like those are the only things about his game is just completely missing the entire picture of Anthony Edwards. Now, for those of you who don't know, Anthony Edwards was the first overall pick in the 2020 NBA draft. He was selected to the Minnesota Timberwolves, as we all know, struggled mightily last year and is struggling mightily this year. They just fired their coach, and their new recent hire, Chris Finch, has yet to win a game. Now, with Anthony Edwards, his weaknesses are pretty apparent. I mean, you can watch a game about him. You can pretty much pick up everything he's weak about. He's not a super efficient shooter. He only shoots 37% from the field and 31% from the three. And he doesn't really have a strong mid-range game either. On shots from 10 to 16 feet away from the rim, he only shoots 13%. Now, he's also not a great defender, and that's kind of been a knock on him throughout his entire career since people started watching him. But to be completely fair, Minnesota is not the place where I expected Anthony Edwards to make a huge defensive leap, because, to be quite honest, I don't trust any of the defensive coordination that goes down in Minnesota. I mean, you can look at the numbers and it'll tell you Minnesota has only one player with a defensive rating below 110, and that's their backup center. So it's not like Anthony Edwards is really getting a lot of help or a lot of tutelage on the defensive side of the ball. Also, into another point about Edwards' poor shooting is he also takes a lot of bad shots. Some shots that are just a product of him always being the guy that had to lead his team to wins or have to generate his team back in the offense or back into a swing of things back in high school and back at Georgia. That kind of developed the bad habit of Edwards relying heavily on himself a bit too much. However, despite all of his weaknesses, he still has a lot of talent. Like I said, if you watch one game of Anthony Edwards, or even just two, you can easily pick up on his weaknesses, but you can clearly pick out all the positives in this game. This guy basically oozes raw potential. You think that sweat on his forehead? No, that's potential. He makes plays and you'll look at him like, that kid is a rookie? He has such... Zion, easily the most athletic player out of last year's draft. In this year's draft, it's clear Anthony Edwards is that elite athletic player. He plays a lot of guard, but he's big enough to where he can play some forward as well, and he's quick enough that he can move around, he can slide his feet, and that really relies on his athleticism. And you can see, at least every night, Edwards makes at least a highlight reel dunk, like the one he made on Yuta Watanabe, that pretty much, there's no dunk that can be better than that unless someone throws a 540 in the middle of the game. And he also has a pretty crafty layup package that he can go to whenever he's cutting to the rim. And you can see him as he's playing the game starting to understand the mechanics. And that kind of goes down to he doesn't turn the ball over a lot despite his high usage rate. I mean, for rookies of all time, well, not all time, since 1977, I think, when they first started tracking rate statistics and everything, Edwards is on pace to become the 6th rookie ever in NBA history with a 25% usage rate, less than 11% turnover rate on 1,000 or more minutes. And he's already achieved that in his first 35 games. Imagine what those stats could look like over the course of the rest of the regular season. And plus, Edwards is naturally cool and composed in interviews. It doesn't seem like he's had coaching. It seems like whenever he's in front of the microphone answering questions from reporters, it seems like he's just naturally just this smooth, suave guy that you'll always want to interview, because he's always going to give you not so much a scandalous answer, but it's an answer that makes you sit back and go, that's something a veteran would say. He interacts with the media like he's been doing it all his life, which I don't think that's the case. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know Anthony personally, but this is his first year as a pro, and he's responding like a 10-year veteran. At this point, Anthony Edwards' interviews are the second most interesting NBA person interviews in the entire NBA, second only to, of course, Greg Popovich. Like I said, Anthony Edwards has clear weaknesses, but those are not the biggest points of his game. The biggest points of his game is the fact that he has a lot of potential and a lot of athleticism. And he shows a willingness to learn the game, and he doesn't turn the ball over frequently. So he's not going to cost you a lot of possessions. Granted, if you could work on his bad shot taking, maybe passing the ball up, or maybe just taking better shots and becoming a better shooter, then, that'll work. With new hire Chris Finch was one of the figureheads that led to Lonzo becoming a better shooter in general. As we all know, when Lonzo got into the league, he was a pretty streaky, trending more to terrible shooter. Now he's respectable. Now you have to guard Lonzo out on the 3-point line. Edwards is already shooting 31% from 3. If he gets with Chris Finch, can get him working on his shot, get him working on a mid-range, get a consistent mid-range game from Edwards, Edwards would be lethal. Like I said, he shoots 37% from the field and 31% from 3, but only 13% from 10 to 16 feet. That is somewhat attributed to those bad shots that he's been taking that I talked about earlier. But if Chris Finch can increase that mid-range percentage to up to 30-40%, Edwards would easily become one of the best, 25-30 players in the league, possibly higher than that. So when you look at Anthony Edwards, yes, consider the weaknesses, but also realize there are a lot of strengths and a lot of potential from the first overall pick from this year's draft. And that's valid.